I received a call at 2:47 inches the morning, and the voice on the other end told me my son was dying alone in a trauma unit in Boston, while his wife was nowhere to be found. 4 hours later, I discovered she was celebrating at a 5-star resort in the Berkshires with his business partner. What I did next made them both wish they had never been born. My name is Marcus Webb. I am 67 years old, and I spent 35 years as a federal prosecutor before I retired to what I thought would be a quiet life of fishing and grandchildren. I put away mob bosses, corrupt politicians, and corporate criminals who thought they were untouchable. I thought I had seen every form of human depravity. I was wrong. The monster I was about to face was sleeping in my son's bed. Before I tell you how I systematically dismantled 2 lives in a single weekend, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I want to know how far this story of justice travels, because what happened to my family could happen to anyone, and the wolves are always closer than you think. The automatic doors of Massachusetts General Hospital slid open with a pneumatic hiss that sounded like the last breath of hope escaping into the cold Boston night. I did not stop at the information desk. I did not wait for a visitor badge. My former colleagues in the U.S. Attorney's Office had already pulled strings to get me the room number. I walked through the fluorescent-lit corridors with the heavy, purposeful stride of a man who had spent decades walking into courtrooms where lives hung in the balance. Room 714, Intensive Care Unit. The number burned in my mind like a brand. I pushed open the door, and my heart, a muscle I thought had calcified after 3 decades of prosecuting the worst humanity had to offer, shattered into 1,000 pieces. My son Daniel lay there, broken. His face was swollen beyond recognition, purple and black bruises covering every inch of visible skin. Tubes snaked from his arms, his chest, his throat. The ventilator breathed for him with a mechanical rhythm that sounded like a countdown clock. The monitors beeped their grim assessment of his vital signs, each pulse a reminder that he was clinging to life by the thinnest of threads. But it was not the sight of my boy that made my blood freeze in my veins. It was the empty chair beside his bed. The vinyl recliner that hospitals provide for family members who refuse to leave their loved ones was pushed against the wall, cold and untouched. There were no flowers on the windowsill. There was no coat draped over the back of a chair. There was no half-empty coffee cup on the tray table. There was absolutely no sign that anyone who claimed to love him had been there to hold his hand while he fought for his life. My son was dying, and he was doing it alone. A nurse walked in, a tired woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a clipboard. She stopped when she saw me standing there like a statue carved from granite and grief. "Are you family?" she asked softly. "I am his father," I said. My voice sounded like gravel scraping against concrete. "Where is his wife? Where is Vanessa?" The nurse hesitated. That hesitation told me everything I needed to know. After 35 years of cross-examining witnesses, I could read a pause like a book. Hesitation meant someone was hiding something they did not want to say. "Mrs. Webb left about 6 hours ago," the nurse said carefully, choosing her words like she was walking through a minefield. "She said the trauma was too overwhelming. She said she needed to go somewhere peaceful to process her emotions. She mentioned something about a wellness retreat. A wellness retreat. My son was hit by a car 2 days ago. He had been in emergency surgery for 9 hours. He had a traumatic brain injury, a shattered pelvis, and internal bleeding that nearly killed him twice on the operating table. And his wife of 8 years had gone to a wellness retreat to process her emotions." I looked at my son's unconscious form. I thought about the day I walked him down the aisle of St. Patrick's Cathedral and handed him to Vanessa Morgan. I thought about the $3 million I had given them as a wedding gift to buy the brownstone in Back Bay. I thought about the investment I had made in Daniel's surgical practice, the one he ran with his partner and best friend, Dr. Ryan Cole. I thought I was buying my son security. I thought I was giving him a foundation for a happy life. Instead, it seems I had financed a lifestyle for a predator. "She went to process her emotions," I repeated, my voice devoid of any belief. "Yes, sir," the nurse said, though she did not look convinced either. She seemed very distraught when she left. She said she would be back when she felt stronger. I nodded slowly. I did not yell at the nurse. It was not her fault. I simply pulled out my phone. My hands were steady now. The shock had passed, replaced by a cold, clinical focus that I recognized from my years in the courtroom. It was the focus of a prosecutor who had just found the thread that would unravel a defense. I knew my daughter-in-law. I knew the woman who spent more on handbags than most people spent on rent. I knew the woman who had convinced my son to buy a vacation home in Nantucket that sat empty 11 months of the year. Vanessa did not do wellness retreats. Vanessa did not meditate. Vanessa did not process emotions unless processing meant shopping or drinking champagne. I dialed her number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. I watched my son's chest rise and fall, driven by a machine, while I waited for the woman who had promised to love him in sickness and in health to answer her phone. "Marcus?" Her voice came through the speaker, and she was whispering. It was a theatrical, breathless whisper designed to sound like a woman overcome with grief. "Oh, Marcus, I am so glad you called. How is he? Is there any change?" "Vanessa," I said, keeping my voice level. "I am at the hospital. The chair beside his bed is empty. Where are you?" "Oh, Marcus, it is just too hard." She let out a sob, or at least made a sound that was supposed to pass for one. "I am at a retreat center in the mountains. I needed to clear my head. The doctors said there was nothing I could do by sitting there, and I was falling apart. I needed to be somewhere peaceful so I could be strong for him when he wakes up." It was a good performance, almost convincing, except for one thing. Vanessa was careless. She had not muted her surroundings properly. In the background, beneath her manufactured weeping, I heard something. It was not the serene silence of a mountain retreat. It was not wind chimes or meditation bells or the murmur of a yoga instructor. It was music. Smooth jazz, the kind they play in upscale hotel lounges. And then I heard it. The distinct pop of a champagne cork, the fizz of expensive wine being poured, and a laugh, a man's laugh, deep and familiar. I knew that laugh. "You are at a retreat center?" I asked, my eyes narrowing as I looked at the heart monitor, tracking my son's struggle for survival. "Yes, Marcus. Canyon Ranch. It is very peaceful here. I am doing meditation and therapy. Please tell Daniel I love him when he wakes up. Tell him I am healing, so I can be there for him." "I will tell him," I said, my voice dropping to a register that used to make defense attorneys sweat in courtrooms. "You stay there. Keep healing. I will handle everything here." I hung up before she could say another word. I stood in the silence of the ICU, but my head was full of noise. That laugh. I knew that laugh. I had heard it at Thanksgiving dinners. I had heard it at my son's birthday parties. I had heard it at the grand opening of their surgical practice 3 years ago. It was Ryan Cole, my son's business partner, his best friend since medical school. I looked at my son one last time. I brushed a strand of hair from his forehead. His skin was cold. "I promise you, Daniel," I whispered, "they will not get away with this." I walked out of the room and pulled out my phone again. But this time, I did not call Vanessa. I called Eleanor Chen, my personal attorney, a woman who had been my right hand during the most complex federal prosecutions of the last 2 decades. She was more shark than human, and she owed me a dozen favors. "Wake up, Eleanor," I said when she answered. "We have a situation. I need you to activate everything. Find my daughter-in-law. I want to know exactly where she is, who she is with, and what she has been doing for the last 48 hours. And Eleanor, I want you to start pulling the financials on my son's practice. Something is very wrong here." I hung up and signaled to the man waiting in the corridor. His name was Victor, a former FBI agent who now ran a private investigation firm that catered to clients who could afford discretion. I had helped him with a case years ago. He had been on standby since I landed in Boston. "Find her," I ordered. "She says she is at Canyon Ranch. She is lying. I want eyes on her within the hour." "Already working on it, sir," Victor replied. We pinged her phone. She is not in the Berkshires. She is at the Mandarin Oriental in Boston. penthouse suite. The Mandarin Oriental, one of the most expensive hotels in the city, 20 minutes from the hospital where her husband was dying. She was not at a mountain retreat seeking peace. She was in a luxury hotel suite, probably looking at the city lights and toasting to whatever sick plan she and Ryan had cooked up. "Who checked in with her?" I asked. Victor looked at his tablet. The suite was booked under the name of Dr. Ryan Cole. They have been there since yesterday afternoon. Room service records show multiple bottles of Dom Perignon, caviar, and a couple's massage booking for tomorrow morning. A couple's massage. While my son lay with his skull fractured and his body broken, his wife was planning a spa day with his best friend. The rage that filled me was not hot. It was absolute zero. It was the kind of cold that burns. It was the rage of a man who had spent his career putting away people who thought they were above the law, and who had just discovered that the worst criminals of all were the ones sitting at his own dinner table. Just then, the chief trauma surgeon came around the corner. Dr. Patel was a small man with wire-rimmed glasses and a perpetually exhausted expression. He spotted me and walked over quickly, his face grave. "Mr. Webb, thank God you are here," he said. "We have a serious problem. Your son needs another surgery. There is bleeding in his brain that we missed initially. We need to operate within the next 2 hours, or the damage could be permanent." "Then operate," I said. "We cannot," Dr. Patel replied, his voice tight with frustration. "We need consent from his healthcare proxy. According to our records, that is his wife. We have been calling her for 6 hours. She will not answer. She will not return our messages. Without her consent, our legal department will not authorize the procedure." I felt the vein in my temple throb. She is his wife. She has the power to decide if he lives or dies. Legally, yes. Unless she is incapacitated or we can prove she is acting against his medical interests, she has final say. "And if we do not operate?" Dr. Patel's face told me everything before he spoke. "He will have significant brain damage. He may never wake up. Or if he does, he will not be the man you knew." I stared at the doctor. My son's life was in the hands of a woman who was currently drinking champagne in a hotel suite with her lover. She was not just absent, she was deliberately unreachable. She was letting the clock run out. She wanted him to die. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This was not grief. This was not trauma. This was calculated. She was stalling. She was waiting for nature to take its course so she could collect whatever she had positioned herself to receive. "Dr. Patel," I said slowly, "what would happen if I told you that I have reason to believe his wife is deliberately withholding consent to cause him harm?" The doctor's eyes widened. "That would change everything. If we can document that the proxy is acting in bad faith, we can petition for emergency guardianship. But we would need evidence, Mr. Webb. We would need proof." "Get me 90 minutes, I said. "Prep the operating room. I will get you everything you need." I turned to Victor. "I need everything. I need their communications, their financial records, their hotel room. I need to know what they are planning, and I need to know it now." Victor nodded. "Sir, there is something else you should know. The hit and run that put your son in here. The police have not found the driver. But my team pulled the traffic camera footage from the intersection, where it happened." He handed me his tablet. I watched the grainy video play out. My son was crossing the street, looking at his phone. A black SUV accelerated toward him. It did not swerve. It did not brake. It hit him dead center and kept going. "That was not an accident," I said. "No, sir," Victor agreed. "That was an execution. And there is more. That SUV was reported stolen 3 days ago. It was found burned out in a parking garage in Dorchester yesterday. But before it was torched, it was captured on a traffic camera in Back Bay, 2 hours before it hit your son." He swiped to another image. The SUV was parked on a residential street. A figure was standing next to it, checking their phone. I zoomed in on the figure. It was Ryan Cole. I stared at the image. My son's best friend. The man who had been the best man at his wedding. The man who had stood beside him when they opened their practice. The man who was currently in a hotel suite with my son's wife. He had tried to murder my son. And now he was celebrating because he thought he had gotten away with it. I put down the tablet. My hand was shaking, not from shock, but from the sheer force of the violence I was holding back. "Victor," I said, my voice calm, terrifyingly calm, "I want that hotel room monitored. I want every word they say recorded. And I want you to find out exactly what they stand to gain from my son's death." Victor looked at me with something approaching respect. "Already on it, sir. But I should warn you, what I am finding is not good. Your daughter-in-law took out a life insurance policy on your son 6 weeks ago, $10 million. And there is a clause in their partnership agreement. If one partner dies, the other inherits their share of the practice. Your son's share is worth about $8 million. $18 million. That was the price tag they had put on my son's life. They were not just cheaters, they were murderers. They had tried to kill Daniel, and now they were waiting for him to die while they drank champagne and planned how to spend their blood money. I thought about my years as a prosecutor. I thought about the trials, the convictions, the justice I had delivered on behalf of people who could not fight for themselves. But this was not going to be a trial. This was going to be a reckoning. "Victor," I said, "I need you to do something else. I need you to find out every debt Ryan Cole owes, every loan, every mortgage, every credit card, and I need you to find out who holds those debts." Victor looked confused. "Sir?" "Just do it, and call Eleanor. Tell her we are going nuclear. By sunrise, I want to own everything they have. I want to own the air they breathe." I turned back to the hospital room, where my son lay dying. "Hold on, Daniel," I whispered. "Your father is going to handle this." I walked back into my son's room with a purpose that had crystallized into something diamond-hard and razor-sharp. Dr. Patel was hovering near the door, his face a mask of professional concern mixed with personal anxiety. He knew who I was. He knew my reputation, and he knew that when Marcus Webb said he would deliver something, it got delivered. "I am going to get you that consent," I told him, "but I need you to do something for me first. I need you to document everything about my son's condition, everything. The extent of the injuries, the timing of when treatment was needed, and most importantly, every single time you or your staff attempted to contact his wife for consent. Timestamps, call logs, everything." Dr. Patel nodded. "I can do that. But Mr. Webb, the legal department is about to become the least of anyone's concerns," I said. "Just document it, and be ready to operate the moment I give you the green light." My phone buzzed. It was Eleanor Chen. "Talk to me," I said. "Marcus, it is worse than we thought." Eleanor's voice was tight, controlled, the way it always got when she was delivering bad news. I pulled the financials on the surgical practice. 6 months ago, Ryan Cole took out a business loan against the practice. $2 million. He forged your son's signature on the documents. Where did the money go? Gambling, online poker sites, sports betting, a few trips to Atlantic City. He lost it all. The loan is in default. The bank is about to foreclose on the practice. I closed my eyes. The picture was becoming clearer by the second. So Cole is drowning in debt. He cannot pay it back. If the practice gets seized, his career is over. But if Daniel dies, Eleanor continued, Cole inherits his partner's share. That is worth enough to pay off the debt, and then some. Plus, there is the insurance policy Vanessa took out. $10 million, split between her and Cole as beneficiaries. She listed Cole as a beneficiary on her husband's life insurance. Secondary beneficiary. If something happens to her, he gets the full payout. But as it stands, they split it $5 million each. Add in Cole's inheritance of the practice share, and they walk away with $13 million between them. More than enough to start a new life somewhere, without extradition. I felt sick. They had planned this down to the last detail. The insurance policy taken out just weeks before the accident, the forged loan documents, the stolen car, the deliberate hit, and now the stalling on medical consent. If Daniel died on the operating table, there might be questions. But if he died because the surgery came too late, because his loving wife was too traumatized to make a decision, it would look like a tragedy, a horrible accident compounded by emotional paralysis. They would collect their money, shed their crocodile tears, and disappear into the sunset. Eleanor, I said, I want you to buy that loan. The loan on the practice? Marcus, that is $2 million. I do not care. Buy it. I want to be the one Cole owes money to, and I want you to find every other debt he has. Credit cards, car payments, the mortgage on his condo. Buy all of it. That could take hours, maybe days. You have 2 hours. Call in every favor I am owed. Offer double the face value. Triple it. I do not care about the money. I care about the leverage. There was a pause on the line. Then Eleanor's voice came back, colder than before. Understood. And Marcus? There is one more thing. I found something in the police report. The detective who caught the hit-and-run case. He flagged something odd. Your son's phone was damaged in the accident, but they recovered some of the data. He received a text message 2 minutes before he was hit. It was from Ryan Cole. It said, "Meet me at the corner of Newbury and Exeter. Important. Come alone." Cole had lured him into the street. He had positioned him exactly where he needed him to be, then run him down with a stolen car. It was not just attempted murder. It was premeditated. It was first degree. And I had the evidence to prove it. Send everything to Victor, I said. And Eleanor, one more thing. I need you to file an emergency petition with the probate court. I am going to take guardianship of my son away from his wife. I have 90 minutes to prove she is acting in bad faith. That is almost impossible, Marcus. The legal standard. I know the legal standard. I helped write it. Just file the paperwork. I will provide the evidence. I hung up and walked out of the hospital. The night air was cold and sharp, cutting through my lungs like a knife. My driver was waiting at the curb. The Mandarin Oriental, I said. Now, as the car tore through the streets of Boston, I opened the live feed Victor had set up from the hotel. His team had placed a directional microphone on the balcony adjacent to the penthouse suite. The audio was crystal clear. I heard them before I saw them. Vanessa's voice, high and giddy with champagne. Do you think the old man suspects anything? Ryan's voice, lazy and confident. Marcus, please. He is a retired lawyer playing golf in Florida. He probably thinks you are actually at a spa. By the time he figures out what happened, we will be halfway to Costa Rica. But what if Daniel wakes up? What if he talks? He is not going to wake up, baby, the doctors said. The window for surgery is closing. Without the operation, he is either dead or a vegetable. Either way, he cannot testify against us. I heard the clink of glasses. To us, Vanessa said, to our new life. To $18 million, Ryan corrected. And to that idiot trusting me for 15 years without ever checking the books. They laughed. They clinked their glasses. They kissed. I recorded everything. Then I heard something that made my blood turn to ice. What about the old man's money? Vanessa asked. Daniel is his only child. If Daniel dies, Marcus has no one to leave it to. Let me worry about Marcus, Ryan said. He is 67 years old. Old men have heart attacks all the time. Maybe in a few months, after the dust settles, he has an accident of his own. Then everything goes to you as Daniel's widow. We are talking about another 40, maybe 50 million. Vanessa giggled. You think of everything? That is why you love me. I stopped the recording. My hands were trembling, but not from fear. From rage so pure it felt like fire in my veins. They were not just going to kill my son. They were planning to kill me too. I put away my phone. I looked out the window at the city lights blurring past. Change of plans, I told my driver. We are not going to the hotel yet. Take me back to the hospital. I needed to save my son's life first. Then I would deal with the monsters who tried to end it. The next 45 minutes were the longest of my life. I stood in the hospital administrator's office. Eleanor on speakerphone. Dr. Patel pacing nervously by the window. On the screen of my laptop, I had the recording of Vanessa and Ryan's conversation playing on loop. The hospital's chief legal counsel, a woman named Margaret Chen, no relation to my Eleanor, watched with her mouth hanging open. This is her, I said, pointing at the screen. This is the woman who is supposed to be making medical decisions for my son. She is in a hotel room with the man who tried to murder him, planning how to spend the insurance money and joking about whether he will ever wake up. She is not traumatized. She is not overwhelmed. She is a co-conspirator in attempted murder, and she is deliberately withholding consent to ensure her victim dies. Margaret looked at Eleanor on the phone. Is this admissible? Margaret asked. In a criminal trial, we would have chain of custody issues, Eleanor admitted. But this is not a criminal trial. This is an emergency guardianship hearing. The standard is the best interest of the patient. I am arguing that the current healthcare proxy is actively working against those interests. The recording is evidence of that. Dr. Patel stepped forward. The patient will suffer irreversible brain damage if we do not operate within the next hour. From a medical standpoint, there is no justification for further delay. Margaret took a deep breath. I am going to call Judge Harrison. He owes me a favor. If anyone can expedite an emergency guardianship order, it is him. 20 minutes later, Judge Harrison was on a video call. His hair mussed from being woken up in the middle of the night, but his eyes sharp and alert as he reviewed the evidence. Mr. Webb, the judge said, you are telling me that your daughter-in-law is deliberately withholding medical consent as part of a scheme to murder your son for insurance money? Yes, Your Honor. I have the recording. I have the traffic camera footage showing her co-conspirator at the scene of the hit and run. I have the financial records showing the insurance policy taken out 6 weeks ago. And I have the call logs showing that the hospital has attempted to reach her 47 times in the past 18 hours without a response. Judge Harrison was quiet for a long moment. This is highly irregular, he said finally, but the evidence is compelling. I am granting temporary emergency guardianship to you, Mr. Webb. This order is effective immediately and will remain in effect until a full hearing can be held. Dr. Patel, you have authorization to proceed with whatever medical treatment you deem necessary. Dr. Patel did not wait for a second invitation. He was out the door and running toward the operating room before the judge had even finished speaking. I sagged against the desk, relief flooding through me. But the relief was short-lived. This was just the beginning. Your Honor, I said, one more thing. I am requesting that you issue a temporary restraining order preventing Vanessa Webb and Ryan Cole from accessing any of my son's financial accounts or insurance policies pending the outcome of a criminal investigation. Judge Harrison nodded. Granted. And Mr. Webb? Make sure the police see that footage. What you have described is not just bad faith. It is conspiracy to commit murder. Already done, Your Honor. I hung up the call and looked at the clock. It was 4:23 the morning. In 6 hours, Vanessa and Ryan would wake up in their luxury suite, expecting to hear news of my son's death. Instead, they were going to wake up to a nightmare of my design. I pulled out my phone and called Victor. How are we on the debt acquisition? Almost done, sir. We bought the business loan 3 hours ago. We are now the primary lien holder on Cole's condominium. His car loan was purchased an hour ago. We own 6 of his credit cards. Total exposure is $4.2 million. And Vanessa? She has less debt. But we found something interesting. The brownstone you gave them as a wedding gift? She took out a home equity line of credit on it 2 years ago. $500,000. Your son did not know. She forged his signature on the documents, just like Cole did with the practice loan. Buy that too. Already done. As of 3:47 this morning, you are the holder of record on all outstanding debts for both Vanessa Webb and Ryan Cole. I smiled for the first time in hours. It was not a nice smile. Good. Now here is what I need you to do. At exactly 9 a.m., I want every single one of those loans called in. I want demand letters delivered simultaneously. I want their bank accounts frozen, pending collection. I want their credit cards declined. I want them to wake up to discover that they do not own a single thing in this world. And if they try to use the insurance money to pay it off, the insurance money is frozen. Judge Harrison's order blocks any payout until the criminal investigation is complete. They are going to discover that the $18 million they were counting on does not exist. Victor was quiet for a moment. Sir, what about the hotel? They are running up quite a tab. Should we let them continue? I thought about it. I thought about them up there, drinking champagne, planning their escape, laughing about my son's impending death. Let them order whatever they want, I said. Let them think they have won. Because when the bill comes due, They are not going to be able to pay it. I hung up the phone and walked back to the surgical suite. Through the window, I could see the team working on my son, the monitors beeping, the lights blazing. Hold on, Daniel, I thought. Your father is handling it. The next 3 hours were a blur of waiting and planning. At 6:15 a.m., Dr. Patel emerged from the operating room, exhausted but smiling. The surgery was successful, he said. We relieved the pressure. The bleeding has stopped. He is stable. I felt my knees go weak. I had to grab the wall to keep from falling. Is he going to be okay? He has a long road ahead of him, but his prognosis is good. He is strong, Mr. Webb. He is a fighter. Like his father, I thought. Like his father. When will he wake up? We are keeping him in a medically induced coma for the next 24 hours to let the swelling go down. After that, we will bring him out gradually. If all goes well, he could be conscious by tomorrow evening. I nodded. Doctor, when he does wake up, I need to be the first person he sees. Not his wife, me. Dr. Patel looked at me with understanding in his eyes. Given what I have learned tonight, I think that can be arranged. At 8:45 a.m., I was sitting in a conference room at the Boston Police Department headquarters, across the table from Detective Michael Torres, the lead investigator on my son's hit-and-run case. I had already given him everything. The traffic camera footage, the recording from the hotel room, the financial records, the forged signatures, the text message that lured Daniel into the street. Detective Torres looked like a man who had just been handed the case of his career. Mr. Webb, he said, this is the most comprehensive evidence package I have ever received on a case that was not already solved. You have essentially done our job for us. I spent 35 years putting criminals away, I said. Old habits die hard. Torres nodded. We are going to arrest them this morning, both of them. Conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, insurance fraud, forgery. They are looking at life sentences. What time? We are assembling the team now. We will move at 10 a.m. I shook my head. Wait until 10:30. Torres frowned. Why? Because at 9 a.m. they are going to get the first round of bad news. I want them to spend 90 minutes in absolute panic before you knock on the door. I want them to know that their money is gone, their assets are seized, and their escape routes are closed before they realize they are also going to prison. Torres looked at me for a long moment. Then he laughed, a short, sharp sound of admiration. You are a cold man, Mr. Webb. I am a father, I said, and they tried to kill my son. At 9 a.m. exactly, the dominoes started to fall. Victor's team had people stationed outside the Mandarin Oriental, monitoring the penthouse suite. At 9:01 a.m., both Vanessa and Ryan's phones started buzzing with notifications. Bank accounts frozen, credit cards declined, demand letters from creditors, notices of default, foreclosure warnings. Victor sent me the audio feed from the directional microphone. What the hell? Ryan's voice panicked. My accounts are frozen. All of them. What is happening? Mine too, Vanessa shrieked. The cards are not working. They are all declined. Call the bank. Call them now. I listened as they scrambled, making call after call, each one ending worse than the last. What do you mean the loan has been sold? Sold to who? What do you mean there is a lien on the brownstone? I never authorized that. What do you mean the insurance payout is blocked? On whose authority? And then, the moment I had been waiting for. Mr. Webb, the bank representative's voice, professional and detached. The individual who now holds your debt is listed as Webb Capital Recovery, LLC. The demand for full payment was filed this morning. You have 72 hours to pay the outstanding balance of $1.7 million, or foreclosure proceedings will begin. Silence on the line. Then Vanessa's voice, trembling. Webb? As in Marcus Webb? I cannot speak to the ownership structure, ma'am. I only have the corporate name. The call ended. I listened to the silence in the hotel room. Then I heard Vanessa start to cry. He knows, she sobbed. Marcus knows. He knows everything. That is impossible, Ryan said, but his voice was shaking. How could he know? We were careful. We have to run. We have to get out of here. Now. Run where? With what money? Our accounts are frozen. Our cards are dead. We cannot even pay for this hotel room. As if on cue, there was a knock on the door. "Hotel management," a voice called. "We need to speak with you regarding your account." I smiled and closed the laptop. Let them sweat. At 10:30 a.m., Detective Torres and his team arrived at the Mandarin Oriental. I was there. I wanted to see it. I stood in the lobby, just out of sight, as the elevator doors opened and 6 police officers stepped out. They walked down the hall to the penthouse suite. Torres knocked. "Boston Police Department. Open the door." There was a long pause. Then the door opened, and I saw them. Vanessa looked like she had aged 10 years overnight. Her mascara was smeared down her face. Her hair was a mess. She was wearing a hotel robe, clutching it closed with white-knuckled hands. Ryan was behind her, trying to look calm, but I could see the sweat on his forehead, the tremor in his hands. "What is this about?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Ryan Cole, Vanessa Webb. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder in the first degree, insurance fraud, and forgery." Torres stepped forward, handcuffs gleaming. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Vanessa collapsed. She literally fell to her knees, sobbing. "It was not my idea," she screamed. "It was all Ryan. He planned everything. I did not know he was going to hit him with the car. I thought we were just going to wait for the insurance money. I did not know anyone would get hurt." Ryan's face went white. "Shut up, Vanessa. Shut up right now." "I am not going to prison for you," she shrieked. "I am not going to take the fall for this. He made me do it. He said Daniel was going to find out about the money he stole. He said we had no choice." She was throwing him under the bus to save herself. Just like I knew she would. The officers pulled them apart, cuffing them separately, reading them their rights as they dragged them toward the elevator. As they passed through the lobby, Vanessa looked up and saw me. Our eyes met. I did not say anything. I did not need to. She knew. She knew that I had done this, that I had torn apart her scheme, stolen her money, and handed her to the police on a silver platter. "You," she hissed. "You ruined everything." I stepped closer, close enough to whisper. "You tried to kill my son," I said. "I'm just returning the favor." The officers pulled her away. I watched them load both of them into separate squad cars. Then I turned and walked out of the hotel into the morning sunlight. It was a beautiful day. 2 days later, Daniel woke up. I was there when his eyes opened. I was holding his hand when the confusion cleared and recognition dawned in his face. "Dad?" His voice was a rasp, weak and strained. "What happened? Where is Vanessa?" I told him everything. I watched his face as the truth sank in. I watched the denial, the disbelief, the anger, and finally, the grief. Not grief for the woman he had lost, but grief for the marriage he thought he had, for the friend he thought he knew, for the life he thought was real. "She tried to kill me," he whispered. "Ryan tried to kill me." "Yes," I said. "But they failed, and they are never going to hurt anyone again." He was quiet for a long time. "The practice," he finally said. "The house, everything I built." "The house is safe," I told him. "I bought the lien. It is yours free and clear. The practice is a different story. Cole stole $2 million. He forged your name on loan documents. The creditors have a claim." Daniel closed his eyes. "So, I have nothing." "You have your life," I said. "You have your health. You have your license. You can rebuild. And you have me." He looked at me then, really looked at me. "You did this," he said. "You saved me. Not just the surgery. All of it. You took them down. I am your father," I said simply. "That is what fathers do." He squeezed my hand. It was weak, but it was there. "Thank you, Dad." In the months that followed, justice ground forward with the relentless machinery that I knew so well. Ryan Cole pleaded guilty to attempted murder and conspiracy. He received 25 years to life. He will be eligible for parole when he is 73 years old. If he lives that long. Vanessa tried to fight. She hired expensive lawyers and crafted elaborate defenses. She claimed coercion. She claimed she was a victim too. But the recordings I had made destroyed every narrative she tried to construct. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. She received 20 years. She cried when the verdict was read. She screamed that it was not fair. She had to be dragged from the courtroom by bailiffs. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no triumph. Just a cold, quiet sense of closure. The insurance company voided the policy Vanessa had taken out. The money she was counting on vanished like morning fog. The bank foreclosed on Ryan's condominium. I bought it at auction for 30 cents on the dollar and donated it to a nonprofit that provides housing for domestic violence survivors. The medical practice was dissolved. The legitimate assets were liquidated to pay the creditors Ryan had defrauded. What was left went into a trust for Daniel's recovery. And Daniel recovered. It was slow. It was painful. There were months of physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy. There were dark days when he wanted to give up, when the magnitude of the betrayal threatened to crush him. But he is a Webb, and Webbs do not quit. 18 months after the accident, he walked into a new medical practice. Smaller than before, humbler. But he hired good people, honest people. He read every contract himself. He checked every signature. He learned the hardest lesson. I visited him last week. We sat on the patio of his new apartment, looking out at the Boston skyline. He had a beer. I had whiskey. "You know what I keep thinking about," he said. "What?" "That night, the night you got the call, if you had not come, if you had not fought for me, if you had just trusted the system to work." He shook his head. "I would be dead, Dad, or worse. And they would be on a beach somewhere, spending my money, laughing about how easy it was." "But that is not what happened," I said. "No," he agreed, "because you did not let it happen. You saw through them when no one else did. You built the case. You bought the debt. You closed every escape route." He turned to look at me. "How did you know, Dad? How did you know so quickly that something was wrong?" I thought about it. I thought about 35 years of prosecuting criminals, about learning to read lies in the silences between words, about understanding that the most dangerous predators are the ones who smile the widest. "I spent my career hunting wolves," I said finally, "and I learned that they always hunt in the same way. They get close, they gain trust, they wait until their prey is vulnerable, then they strike." I took a sip of my whiskey. When the nurse told me Vanessa had left to process her emotions, I knew, because I had seen that excuse 100 times before. It is what people say when they need an alibi. It is what they say when they need to be somewhere else while the crime unfolds. Daniel nodded slowly. "The thing I learned," I continued, "is that money does not buy loyalty. It does not buy love. It cannot buy back time, and it cannot buy back what they took from us." "Then what good is it?" Daniel asked. I smiled. It was a hard smile, forged in decades of battle. "Money is a tool," I said. "It is a weapon. If you know how to hold it, you can use it to build walls that keep the monsters out, or you can use it to crush them when they try to get in." I looked at my son. "Never apologize for having resources, Daniel. Just never forget what they are for. Protect what matters. Fight for the people you love. And if someone betrays that love, do not just walk away. Make sure they can never hurt anyone else again." He raised his beer. I raised my whiskey. "To justice," he said. "To family," I countered. "Justice is just the tool. Family is the reason." We drank to that as the sun set over Boston, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. So that is my story. If you are watching this, if you have followed this tale from the hospital room to the courtroom, I want you to understand something. This is not just a story about a rich man protecting his son. This is a story about vigilance, about seeing people for who they really are, not who they pretend to be. Take a good look at the people closest to you, the ones who always seem to need money, the ones who ask about your will, your insurance, your assets, the ones who are there for the good times but vanish when things get hard. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And if you ever find yourself in my position, if you ever discover that someone you trusted is plotting against your family, remember my story. Document everything. Build the case. Buy the leverage. Close the trap. Do not wait for justice to come to you. Justice is not given. It is taken by those with the will to enforce it. One last thing. If you are watching this, and you think you can target my family because we are quiet now, because Daniel has rebuilt his life, and I have returned to my retirement, think again. I may be 67 years old. I may have gray hair and reading glasses. But I am not a victim. Do not ever touch my family. Because I do not just have money. I have patience. I have resources. And I have a memory that never fades. Cross the line, and I will not just sue you. I will dismantle you. I will wait until you think you are safe, until you think you have won. And then I will turn off the lights. This is Marcus Webb, signing off from Astral Vengeance. If you believe in protecting family at all costs, if you believe that justice should be served cold, hit that subscribe button. Share this story. Let it be a warning to the wolves. The lions are still awake, and we are always watching.